Her children left her to die in a hospital bed. They didn't know the woman they threw away was worth more than everything they ever fought for. My name is Attorney Claire Morgan, and this case still lives somewhere in the deepest part of my memory. Not because of tragedy, but because sometimes silence becomes the cruelest form of justice. Evelyn Hart was brought to the hospital on a cold evening. She was weak, trembling, her breath shallow, but the real pain wasn't in her body. It was in her heart. The way Adam looked annoyed, the way Lena didn't lift her eyes from her phone, the way Brian sighed over the costs, the way Sophie whispered, "Let's leave her here, she's becoming a burden." No one held her hand. No one stayed to comfort her. They walked out without looking back, leaving their own mother in a cold, white room. But they didn't know one thing. Evelyn Hart was not as helpless as they believed. She owned a hidden property, an estate left by her late husband. She hid it because she feared exactly this moment, the moment her children would value money more than her life. The night she collapsed, Nurse Nora Williams stayed by her side. She warmed Evelyn's hands, fed her slowly, adjusted her pillows, whispered kindness into her loneliness. Days passed, no children came, no calls, no visits. Only Nora stayed. Evelyn noticed the softness in her voice, the gentle way she cared, as something Evelyn had not received from her own family in years. One morning, with weak but honest eyes, Evelyn told her, "You saved me, not just my body but my heart." Weeks went by. Still, none of her children returned. Evelyn finally asked Nora, "Would you take me home with you?" Nora hesitated, but Evelyn's loneliness was louder than her words. She took Evelyn to her small, warm home, a home filled with the care she had begged for all her life. 3 months later, Adam received a message from a distant relative. "Did you know your mother owns a large hidden estate?" Their hearts didn't break for their mother, they broke for the money. They rushed to the hospital the next morning, but Evelyn was gone, and the only person they found was Nurse Nora. Adam, Lena, Brian, and Sophie stormed into the hospital reception as if the building owed them something. Their voices rose together, sharp and panicked. "We're here for our mother. Where is Evelyn Hart? She was admitted months ago. Why isn't her name on the patient list?" The receptionist's calm reply sliced through their urgency. "She was discharged 3 months back." 3 months, 3 long months without them realizing she was gone. Nurse Nora stepped into the hallway at that very moment, holding a chart against her chest. She froze when she saw the 4 children, not because she feared them, but because she knew exactly why they had returned. Adam marched toward her. "What did you do with our mother?" he snapped. Nora didn't move. Her voice stayed steady, almost too calm for their liking. "Your mother left with her own choice," Lena scoffed. "As if she would leave without telling us." "That's exactly what she did," Nora replied, eyes meeting theirs without hesitation. "She waited for months, she cried for you, she asked every morning if anyone had called, if anyone had come." Her voice softened, but her eyes remained firm. "No one did." Brian's jaw tightened. "We want her location. Right now." Nora stepped back slightly, not out of fear, but to create space between herself and their anger. "I can't tell you where she is. She made it very clear she didn't want to be found by any of you." Sophie's temper snapped. "You have no right to hide her. We're her children." Nora's answer came slowly, each word heavy with truth. "Children, you left her in a hospital bed like a piece of furniture you no longer needed. You didn't call. You didn't visit. You didn't care." Her voice shook slightly, not with fear, but with the weight of everything she had witnessed. "For months, I watched her look at the door, hoping one of you would walk in, just once." Adam took a threatening step closer. "Listen, nurse, don't try to act like you know our family, just give us her address." Nora didn't flinch. "Your mother is safe, your mother is looked after, your mother is happier than she ever was." Brian's eyes narrowed. "Why are you protecting her? What do you get out of this?" Nora looked at him with sadness instead of anger. "Peace. Something she deserved all her life." For a moment, silence sat between them, thick and unbearable. Then Sophie finally asked what they all were thinking. "Did she leave anything behind? Any documents? Any property information?" The shift in their voices was immediate and ugly. Concern melted into greed, fear into calculation. Nora saw it and she understood everything. "She trusted someone," she said quietly. "But it wasn't you." Adam's voice rose, panic creeping into it. "She had property, didn't she? Hidden property?" Nora didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. Lena ran a hand through her hair, pacing in circles. "Where is she? Where did she go? Who is she with?" Nora finally spoke, slow, gentle, firm. She left this hospital with me. She came to my home because she had no one else, because you left her, because you forgot her. A stunned stillness wrapped around the four siblings. You took her to your house? Brian's voice cracked with disbelief. Yes, Nora replied. I took her home, I cared for her, I gave her warmth, stability, comfort, things she begged for from you and never received. Sophie swallowed hard. You're lying, she would never choose you over us. Nora stepped forward, her expression breaking into soft sadness. She didn't choose me over you, she chose the place where she wasn't abandoned. Those words tore through them like a blade. Before anyone could speak, Nora added one more truth, quiet but devastating. And as for the property, she is handling it in her own way, through her lawyer. All four siblings froze. Her lawyer, Adam whispered. Nora nodded. Attorney Claire Morgan is representing her. And before she left my home this morning, your mother signed the first set of papers. Shock, confusion, fear. What papers? Lena demanded. But Nora simply turned away, her voice drifting back to them. Papers that have nothing to do with any of you? She walked down the hallway, leaving them standing there, four children who suddenly realized the mother they had abandoned was no longer within their reach. The four siblings left the hospital with shaken steps, their confidence shattered. Everything they had built inside their minds, control, inheritance, certainty, was slipping like sand through their fingers. Adam was the first to break the silence outside the hospital doors. We find the lawyer, he said. That nurse is hiding something, she's manipulating Mom, I'm sure of it. But even as he spoke, his voice trembled with doubt. Lena crossed her arms tightly against her chest. She won't cut us out, she wouldn't dare, we're her children. Brian whispered the thought none of them wanted to hear. What if she already has? They exchanged looks heavy with panic. Sophie pulled out her phone. I'll call the lawyer's office, we'll get answers. Her voice sounded steady, but her shaking fingers betrayed her. Within an hour, they stood in the quiet, polished hallway of my office. Attorney Claire Morgan, had seen all kinds of families walk through my door, but this family had a particular energy. A mix of arrogance, fear, and entitlement wrapped in a single storm. When they entered my office, they didn't sit. They didn't greet, they simply demanded. Where is our mother? Adam barked. I closed the file on my desk slowly. She asked me not to disclose her location. Sophie stepped forward. We're her legal heirs. We deserve to know. I tilted my head slightly. Legal heirs, I repeated softly. You abandoned her. The words struck them harder than they expected. Lena tried to regain ground. She has no right to cut us out of her life, she's ill. She's not thinking clearly. She is thinking more clearly than she ever has, I replied. Brian's voice rose, cracking under pressure. We know about the estate, the hidden property. She can't just give that away. I leaned back in my chair, observing the panic blooming in all four faces. It's her property, she can give it to anyone she chooses. Adam snatched a step closer. You're helping that nurse steal from us. I let the accusation hang in the air, then spoke with calm that cut deeper than anger. No one is stealing from you. Your mother is simply giving her love, respect, and gratitude to the only person who gave her those things back. Silence filled the room. Their expressions shifted from rage to confusion to something that looked almost like guilt. Almost. Sophie cleared her throat softly. Can we see her just once? I studied them closely. Their desperation was real, but it wasn't born from love, it was born from losing what they assumed they owned. I will ask her, I said, but I cannot promise anything. Lena's eyes finally softened, her voice a whisper. We made mistakes, we didn't mean to abandon her, I cut her off gently. You wanted her gone because she felt heavy. You forgot that one day the weight of regret becomes heavier than any burden. Their eyes lowered. I opened the folder on my desk and placed a document in front of them. This, I said, is the first transfer agreement. Your mother signed it yesterday. Four hearts dropped at once. Adam grabbed the paper. His voice was almost unrecognizable. She transferred half of the estate already? No, I corrected softly. She transferred all of it. Their breathing changed. Shock, rage, disbelief. What do you mean all? Brian shouted. Everything, I repeated calmly. Every piece of land, every structure, every penny connected to that estate. Sophie's knees almost gave out. She left nothing for us? I closed the file and folded my hands together. She left something, I said, their heads jerked up with hope. She left you her absence. They froze. She left you the exact thing you gave her. None of them spoke, none of them could. Because for the first time, they truly saw their mother not as an obligation, but as a human who finally chose her own peace. I stood up. If she agrees to meet you, I'll inform the nurse. Until then, leave her in peace. Adam opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The four of them walked out of my office in silence, the same way their mother once walked out of their home, unnoticed, unwanted, and unbearably alone. But their story was far from over. Because Evelyn Hart was ready to make one final decision, not out of revenge, but out of freedom. Evelyn Hart sat by the small window in Nurse Nora's guest room, her frail hands wrapped around a cup of warm chamomile tea. Outside, the late afternoon sun slipped gently between the curtains, painting her face in a soft, peaceful glow. It had been years since peace had touched her this way. Nora entered quietly, carrying a folded blanket. "You should rest a little," she said softly. Evelyn smiled, the kind of smile that carried whole lifetimes of exhaustion. "I rested my whole life," she whispered, "but never like this." For a moment, Nora just watched her, this fragile woman with a heart heavy from decades of neglect and disappointment. Evelyn had told her everything. How the children used her, how loneliness ate slowly at her, how the nights in the hospital felt like a cold grave no one mourned. But most of all, how freedom felt for the first time. Nora sat across from her. "Your lawyer called," she said gently. "There was a meeting with your children today." Evelyn's breath paused in her chest. "Did they say anything?" Nora hesitated. "They want to see you." Evelyn looked down at her trembling hands. "Now that they know I had money?" Nora didn't answer, and that silence told Evelyn everything she needed to know. She closed her eyes for a long moment. "I waited months in that hospital, Nora. Every morning I opened my eyes hoping to see one of them walk through the door. I prayed for voices in the hallway, footsteps, anything." Her voice began to quiver, memories rising like old ghosts. "But the only footsteps were yours." Nora reached out and held her hand. "I never replaced them. I only cared for someone who deserved to be cared for." Evelyn blinked slowly, tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. "You didn't replace them," she said. "You became the daughter I never had." Those words made Nora look down, swallowing a breath she didn't expect to feel so deeply. A long silence stretched between them, comfortable, warm, a silence Evelyn had never known with her own family. Evelyn finally spoke again. "Claire said the transfer is almost complete, right?" "Yes," Nora nodded. "She will bring the final papers tomorrow." Evelyn leaned back, her voice calm but filled with unshakable certainty. "Nora, I want you to have it, all of it. The land, the house, the savings, everything." Nora froze, stunned. "Evelyn, no, that's too much. I can't take that." "You're not taking anything," Evelyn whispered. "I'm giving it. Giving away the last pieces of my past so I can finally breathe again." Nora shook her head, overwhelmed. "I didn't help you for money. I didn't even know." "I know," Evelyn interrupted gently. "That's why you deserve it." The sun moved lower and the room shifted into a warm orange glow. Evelyn's voice softened with a weight she had carried far too long. "My children, they never saw me, not when I cried, not when I suffered. Not even when I begged for a little time." She looked toward the door as if staring through walls and miles and memories. "They only saw my hands when they needed something from them." Nora squeezed her fingers. "You can still meet them if you want." Evelyn let out a fragile laugh. "A mother's heart never stops wanting to see her children, but a mother's wounds, they don't stop bleeding just because someone regrets too late." Her eyes grew distant. "If I see them now, my heart will weaken. I will forgive them. And I cannot allow myself to go back to the place that destroyed me." Nora nodded slowly, understanding the truth without needing more explanation. Evening settled around them. A soft breeze entered from the window, lifting the curtains with gentle hands. Evelyn reached for a small photograph on the table, a picture of her children when they were young, all four smiling, standing beside her. She traced their faces with her thumb, her voice trembling with quiet heartbreak. "I loved them with everything. Every breath I had, every sacrifice I made, but love needs to be returned, even just a little." Her tears fell silently, sliding down her cheeks and soaking into the old photograph. "They left me to die," she whispered softly, "and now I am learning to live without them." Nora placed an arm around her shoulders, letting her lean gently against her. "You have me," Nora whispered. "And you will always have my home." Evelyn nodded, closing her eyes as her tears slowly dried. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. Not because she had wealth, not because she had family, but because she finally had someone who cared without conditions or gain. Outside, the sky turned darker, but inside Nora's home there was warmth. A quiet warmth that Evelyn had been denied for decades. That night, as Nora helped her lie down, Evelyn spoke one last sentence before sleep carried her away. "Let tomorrow be the day my past ends and your future begins." And in those soft, tired words lived a lifetime of pain and the beginning of her final freedom. Morning arrived softly, sunlight spilling across the living room of Nora's small home. Evelyn sat in her usual chair, wrapped in a light shawl, her breathing steady, her eyes peaceful. She watched the sun rise with the calmness of someone who had finally stopped running from her own life. A gentle knock came at the door. Nora opened it to find me, attorney Claire Morgan, standing with a leather file in my hands. My voice was soft, careful. "Good morning, I'm here for Evelyn." Nora stepped aside and I walked in quietly. When Evelyn saw me, her frail face lit up with a tired but genuine smile. "You brought the papers?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "These are the final transfer documents. Once you sign them, the entire estate will legally belong to Nora." Evelyn's eyes moistened. She looked at Nora first. "Bring me my glasses, dear." Nora fetched them, her hands trembling slightly. She had never needed wealth, never asked for anything, but now she felt the weight of a gift greater than she could comprehend. I opened the folder and placed the papers in Evelyn's hands. For a long moment, Evelyn didn't sign. She simply stared at the documents, her breath shaky. I knew what she was thinking. This wasn't about money. This was about closing the last door of a lifetime filled with wounds no mother should ever carry. She whispered, almost to herself, "I'm not signing away my children, I'm signing away the pain they left in me." Her hands steadied. Then she signed. Each stroke of the pen was slow, deliberate, heavy, like she was writing the final chapter of a book she had never wanted to read. When she finished, she placed the pen on the table with trembling fingers. Nora blinked rapidly, her chest rising with emotion. "Evelyn, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Evelyn murmured. "You already said everything when you stayed beside me when no one else did." I gathered the papers carefully, sealing the file shut. "It's done," I said. "Nora is now the legal heir." Evelyn let out a small breath, part relief, part sadness. But before the quiet settled, Nora's phone buzzed. A message. Nora frowned at the screen. "It's from the hospital receptionist. Your children were there again this morning. They asked if anyone had seen you." Evelyn didn't react at first. She simply folded her hands and stared at the floor. "They're searching for me," she whispered. I nodded. "They know the property is gone now. They'll be angry, desperate." Evelyn smiled weakly. "How strange, when I was dying, no one searched for me, but now that I'm alive and happy, they want to find me." She leaned back in her chair, her voice turning distant. "I don't hate them, I hate the years I wasted waiting for them to love me." Nora knelt beside her. "You don't have to meet them if you don't want to." A long silence grew between them. Then Evelyn suddenly spoke. "Take me outside," she whispered. "To the bench near the old oak tree." Nora was confused, but she gently helped Evelyn up and supported her outside. I followed. The air was cool, the wind soft, leaves rustling lightly. Evelyn sat on the bench, her eyes traveling across the street. And then she froze. A black car slowed down, 4 familiar faces inside, her children. They didn't see her, not yet. But they were looking for her, turning their heads from window to window, their expressions tight with worry and regret. Nora looked at Evelyn. "Should I call them?" she whispered. Evelyn shook her head immediately. "No." Her eyes filled not with anger but with something far more painful. "I just wanted to see them once," she murmured quietly. "To know they're alive before I disappear from their lives forever." Sophie leaned out of the car window, scanning the area. For a moment, Evelyn held her breath, her heart swelling painfully. But Nora gently adjusted the shawl around Evelyn's face, shielding her from being recognized. The car passed. Evelyn watched it drive away until it disappeared down the road. Only then did her tears fall, slow, fragile, heartbreaking. "They will never understand why I chose silence," she whispered. "But silence is the only peace I have left." Nora placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore." Evelyn nodded slowly, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. She turned to me, her voice barely audible. "Claire, don't let them find me, not now, not ever." I won't, I said softly. The sun dipped lower, warming her tired face. Evelyn closed her eyes. I am finally free, she whispered. Nora held her hand. I watched the fragile woman breathe in peace she had chased her entire life. And somewhere far away, her children searched for a mother they had already lost, not to death, but to the consequences of their own choices. The next morning, Nora found Evelyn sitting by the window again, staring at the empty street where her children's car had disappeared the day before. Her eyes were distant, that same photograph of her children resting in her lap. But something in her face had changed, a softness mixed with a tired sorrow that only mothers know. Nora approached slowly. You didn't sleep much, did you? Evelyn smiled faintly. Sleep feels different when your heart is full and empty at the same time. Nora didn't push. She simply sat beside her, letting silence speak. A gentle knock came at the door. Nora opened it and found me, Claire, standing with a concerned expression. I thought I'd check on you both, I said. Evelyn turned her face toward me, her eyes carrying a question she didn't want to ask. Did they come back? No, I replied, but they called my office, all four, several times. Evelyn closed her eyes. They must be angry, she whispered. Not angry, I said softly. They sound scared. And lost? Evelyn let out a sad exhale. They are scared of losing money, not me. The truth hung in the air like heavy fog. Nora placed a glass of water on the table and gently touched Evelyn's shoulder. You don't have to think about them anymore. But Evelyn shook her head slowly. I am a mother, she said. My heart thinks about them even when my mind tells me not to. Her voice broke a little. I don't want them to hate me, but I can't let them near me again. I stepped closer. You don't owe them anything, not explanations, not forgiveness. Evelyn looked at me, eyes trembling. But Claire, I owe myself peace. She reached for the photograph, tracing her children's faces with trembling fingers. Peace means letting go of the things you love when they hurt too much to hold. Her words shook both Nora and me to the core. Nora suddenly noticed Evelyn's hands trembling more than usual. Are you feeling weak? A little, Evelyn said softly. But it's not the body that is weak, it's the memories. Nora helped her sit more comfortably, placing a pillow behind her back. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. The doorbell rang, loud, impatient, almost frantic. Nora opened it cautiously. Adam stood outside. Behind him were Lena, Brian, and Sophie. Their faces were exhausted, anxious, and filled with a strange mixture of guilt and desperation. We want to talk, Adam said. His voice was rough, as if he had been shouting or crying earlier. Nora stepped out and closed the door behind her. You shouldn't be here, she said firmly. Brian's voice cracked. We know she signed everything away. We're not here for the property. Sophie whispered, we just want to see her, once. Nora didn't move. She didn't trust their sudden change. Why now? She asked quietly. Why didn't you come when she begged for you? Lena wiped a tear quickly, as if ashamed of it. We didn't know, she murmured. We didn't know how badly she needed us. Nora looked at them one by one. For the first time, she saw something real, not love maybe, but regret. Still, she shook her head. She doesn't want to see you, she asked for peace. Adam stepped forward. Please just let us hear her voice. Let us apologize? Nora didn't respond immediately. Inside the house, Evelyn had heard their voices. Her hands clutched the arm of the chair, her breathing trembling. She didn't move toward the door, she didn't call out. She simply whispered to herself, not now, not like this. I approached her. Do you want me to send them away? Evelyn nodded slowly. Yes, I don't want to see them, not in anger, not in regret. Maybe one day, but not today. Her eyes filled with quiet tears. But Claire, could you help me with something? Of course, I said. She looked at me, her voice barely audible. I want to leave them a message, not money, not forgiveness. Just the truth. I understood immediately. We set up the small voice recorder on the table. Nora held Evelyn's hand as she steadied her breathing. When the recorder blinked red, Evelyn began speaking slowly, softly, with a fragile honesty that broke the room apart. If you're hearing this, it means I wasn't strong enough to meet you in person. Not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you too much. So much that your absence nearly killed me. Her voice wavered. I waited for your footsteps. I hoped for your voices, but the days passed and my heart learned a painful truth that love cannot survive alone. She took a slow breath. You didn't lose my property, you lost my trust. And trust is the only inheritance a mother can truly give. Tears ran down Nora's cheeks and I had to look away for a moment. Evelyn continued, I forgive you, but I also choose peace for myself. I hope one day you choose peace too. She ended the recording with trembling fingers. Outside, her children still waited, tears slipping down their faces as Nora told them gently, She's not ready to see you. They didn't argue. They didn't shout. They simply lowered their heads because for the first time they felt the weight of every moment they weren't there for her. Inside, Evelyn closed her eyes and whispered a final thought. Now they know my heart, not my worth. She leaned against Nora's shoulder, her breathing slow and tired. In the house, so quiet moments earlier, filled with the soft sound of a mother finally letting go of a lifetime of hurt. Evelyn slept most of the next day. Her breaths were shallow, her body fragile beneath the soft blanket Nora tucked around her. Every few minutes, Nora checked on her, adjusting her pillow, brushing stray strands of hair from her forehead. But what worried Nora wasn't the illness, it was the change in Evelyn's eyes. A quietness too deep, a sadness too heavy, a peace that felt almost final. I arrived shortly before noon, carrying a small envelope, Evelyn's remaining legal papers. Nora met me at the door, her voice low. She's weaker today. I nodded. I could see it in her face before I even stepped inside. The light in Evelyn's eyes had dimmed, as if her soul was slowly turning its face toward something beyond this world. Evelyn lifted her gaze when she heard my steps. Claire, her voice was barely a whisper. I kneeled beside her chair. Don't push yourself to speak, I'm right here. She smiled faintly, painfully. You always know what to say. Nora brought her a small sip of water. After a long silence, Evelyn asked, Did my children come again? I exchanged a glance with Nora. They passed by the house earlier, Nora said softly. They were standing across the street, they didn't knock. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the blanket. Did they look angry? No, I answered. They looked lost. Evelyn closed her eyes, breathing out a trembling sigh. A mother doesn't want her children to hurt, she whispered. But sometimes a mother becomes the hurt. Nora rubbed her shoulder gently, trying to anchor her trembling voice. Evelyn opened her eyes again. Will they ever forgive me, Claire? I shook my head gently. They don't need to forgive you, they need to understand you. A tear slid down Evelyn's cheek. I spent years understanding them, she whispered, but no one ever tried to understand me. Her breath shuddered. Her lips trembled. Do you think they ever loved me? Nora's hand tightened around hers. Evelyn, love is complicated. Sometimes people feel it but don't know how to show it. Evelyn looked at her with the softness of a woman who had already accepted the truth. Or sometimes, she said, they don't feel it at all. Her words were not bitter, they were simply the truth carved into her bones. Later that evening, the sky darkened early. Rain tapped softly against the windows, filling the house with a gentle rhythm. Evelyn asked Nora to help her stand. I want to sit near the fireplace, she said. I want warmth tonight. Nora supported her carefully, step by step, until she settled into the armchair beside the fire. The golden light painted her face in a trembling glow, making her look both young and impossibly tired. We sat with her, Nora on one side, me on the other. No one spoke. Then, after many minutes, Evelyn broke the silence. Claire, I want to prepare my final instructions. My heart tightened. Nora's eyes filled instantly. Evelyn, please, Nora whispered, but Evelyn lifted her hand gently. I'm not dying today, she said softly. I just want to be ready just in case tomorrow doesn't come. I nodded and pulled out the small envelope. Evelyn spoke slowly, choosing each word with the carefulness of a woman shaping her final truth. If something happens to me, she said, I want Nora to keep the house, not just the property, the house, the way it is with the memories we built here. Nora pressed a hand to her mouth, trying not to cry. And the message for my children, Evelyn continued, release it only when it's truly time. Not out of revenge, but so they know I waited. Her voice cracked on the last word. I understood. Nora understood. The room went quiet again, except for the soft crackling of firewood. After a long pause, Evelyn whispered, Could you open the window? Nora did. A breeze drifted inside, cool and gentle, brushing Evelyn's face. She smiled faintly. I loved the smell of evening air. It reminds me of when my children were small. Her voice wavered with memories. They used to run outside after school, their laughter filled the whole street. A tear slid down her face. And now their silence fills my heart. Nora knelt beside her, wiping her tears softly. They are trying now, Nora said gently, They're searching for you, they regret everything. Evelyn shook her head. They regret losing something but not losing me. Her chest rose slowly, painfully. Claire, will they come again tomorrow? They might, I said honestly. Evelyn nodded with eyes half closed. If they come, don't let them in. Not yet. Why? Nora whispered. Evelyn answered in a voice so soft it barely reached us. Because I'm not strong enough to break a second time. Her body eased into the chair, exhaustion pulling at her. Nora covered her with a blanket, brushing her hair gently. Evelyn whispered one last thought before sleep took her. I hope, in another life, my children choose me. And the room fell still, except for the firelight trembling across her tired, peaceful face. The next morning began with a strange stillness, the kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. Nora moved quietly through the house, preparing tea the way Evelyn liked it, adding just a little honey to soften the bitterness. She carried the cup to the living room, her steps light, her heart uneasy. Evelyn was still asleep in the armchair beside the fireplace, wrapped in her soft shawl, but something felt different, too still, too quiet. Evelyn, Nora whispered gently, no answer. She placed the cup down and knelt beside her, brushing her fingers lightly over Evelyn's hand. It was warm, but not warm enough. Evelyn, wake up, Nora said softly, still nothing. Her breath caught, she touched Evelyn's cheek, soft, peaceful, unmoving, and then Nora understood. Evelyn had slipped away in her sleep. Quietly, gently, like someone who had spent a lifetime fighting storms and finally found a place safe enough to let go. Nora pressed her forehead to Evelyn's hand, tears gathered instantly, falling without sound. You could have waited one more day, she whispered. One more morning, but Evelyn had chosen her moment, a moment of peace. A moment when her heart was full enough to stop hurting and tired enough to stop beating. I arrived a short while later after Nora called in a trembling voice. When I saw Evelyn, still wrapped in her shawl, still facing the window where sunlight touched her face, I felt something break quietly inside me. I placed a hand on Nora's shoulder. She didn't suffer, I said softly. She left the way she wanted, at peace. Nora nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Later, as we began preparing things respectfully, Nora paused. What about her children? She asked. I opened my briefcase and removed the small recorder with Evelyn's final message. She wanted them to hear this, I said, but only after. I couldn't finish the sentence. Nora didn't need me to. That afternoon, Evelyn's children arrived outside the house again. They hadn't knocked yet, perhaps fear held them back, perhaps guilt, perhaps hope. But today, the street felt different. The air was heavier. Nora stepped outside to meet them. Her eyes were red, her voice barely carried. She's gone. The words sliced through the quiet like a blade. Adam staggered backward. Lena gasped, covering her mouth. Brian looked at the ground as if it had collapsed beneath him. Sophie whispered, No, no, please, no. Nora's voice was soft but firm. She passed away this morning. Tears filled 4 pairs of eyes, not the tears of children who lost a mother, but the tears of people who realized they had lost something long before she died. Adam tried to speak, his voice choking. Can we see her? Nora shook her head gently. She asked not to be seen like this, but she left something for you. I stepped forward and handed them the recorder. Your mother wanted you to hear her message. Their hands trembled as they pressed play. Evelyn's voice filled the air, soft, fragile, but heartbreakingly clear. If you're hearing this, it means I wasn't strong enough to meet you again. But I loved you more than you will ever understand. Their shoulders shook as her voice continued. I waited for you every morning, every evening, but waiting became a wound I couldn't heal. Sophie broke down. Brian covered his face. Lena collapsed into Adam's arms, sobbing. Evelyn's message went on. I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't erase the pain you gave me. I chose peace at the end because I never had it while you were near. Her final words were barely a whisper. I hope you learn to love better than you loved me. The recording stopped. No one moved, no one spoke. It was as if her voice still hung in the air, too heavy to fall. Adam finally whispered, We lost her before we even realized she was slipping away. Nora looked at them with a mixture of sadness and strength. She didn't hate you, Nora said softly, but her heart was tired. They wiped their tears, each one breaking differently, guilt eating one, regret crushing another. I stepped forward. Your mother left no property for you, I said quietly. But she left you something else. They lifted their eyes. She left you the truth. Adam swallowed, voice shaking. "What do we do now?" Nora answered gently. "You live with it, and you learn from it. And you don't let the people you still have feel the way she felt." Silence settled over them again. They stood in front of the house where their mother had spent her final, peaceful days, days they never shared, moments they never gave her. Then they walked away slowly, carrying a weight they would bear for the rest of their lives. Inside the house, Evelyn's chair remained by the fireplace, still warm from the morning sun, still holding the peaceful shape of a woman who finally found the love she never received from her own family. Nora closed the door softly behind her, holding Evelyn's shawl to her chest. "I'll take care of everything," she whispered into the quiet room. "Just like you asked." And for the first time in decades, the story of Evelyn Hart ended not in loneliness but in peace. A mother may have died, but her truth lived on, echoing softly in the hearts of everyone she left behind.